Nobody's perfect. But the horrible relatives in this video give a new meaning to the phrase family feud. These families have such a terrible dynamic that it may be way too late for therapy, especially in the case of the last story, where the world's worst dad was caught on camera in the most awkward moment. I'm 21 and my mom is 53. I live with her while I go to school. Throughout my whole life, she has never dated or had a relationship. She's never even really shown an interest in dating. This all changed about half a year ago, when she signed up for a couple of online dating sites. She talks to me about the guys she chats with a lot, and she spends a lot of time talking to them. Like, she's on her phone all day messaging them, and she literally loses sleep because she stays up all night talking to them. It's something I've been worried about with her, that her talking to these guys is negatively affecting her life. She's missed work and appointments because of losing sleep or getting distracted and being late. But it suddenly came to a crisis. I was using her phone yesterday to take pictures as her camera is a lot better than mine. While I was using it, she got a message from one of these guys. It said something like, "Wow, the red hair looks amazing." Immediately, I knew something was off. I had dyed my hair red that day, so I thought she sent the guy a picture of it. The thought made me uncomfortable. I don't want her to send pictures of me to people I don't know. I get paranoid about that kind of stuff. So I looked at her messages. I know it's a trespassing of privacy to snoop, but I needed to see what and how much she sent him. I could not believe what I was looking at. The message she sent to him was a picture I had posted on Facebook of my new hair, and the caption she used was, "I'm feeling creative. What do you think of my new look?" I was mostly just confused. The idea that she was pretending to be me didn't even cross my mind at that point because of how ridiculous it seemed. So I kept reading back in her messages. He referred to her as Marie, which is my middle name. I looked in the sent pictures, and none of them were of her. They were all of me. There were even pictures of me in swimsuits from beach trips. I immediately felt sick and couldn't stop digging through the messages. The grossest part? Some of the messages were of an extremely racy nature. It made me so nauseated to read the things the guy said about me. And even more nauseated to read the stuff my mom said about me. Like talking about my red lipstick. I looked through more of the people she was messaging, and there were 4 other guys she was sending my pictures to. I just put her phone back and went to my room. I feel so sick and angry and scared. My mother has never been inappropriate like this to me in my entire life. I was raised really conservative and Christian, so she's barely ever even mentioned intimate things to me. When she first started using these sites, she would complain to me about how no one was interested in her and that she wasn't pretty enough to get attention. She doesn't really take care of her appearance. Nonetheless, she has really high standards for guys. Young, tall, and muscular. I don't know what to do. I haven't talked to anyone about this because this is so insane and I'm embarrassed and disgusted to mention it to my friends and have them know. I've been avoiding my mom and haven't let on that I know. I'm so scared of how she'll react and I just feel so embarrassed. The scariest part? These guys could find me online. They could be crazy and one could get upset with her and he might even look for me in real life. My jaw is on the floor. To not only catfish multiple people, but to steal your own daughter's photos to do it? That's seriously deranged. I don't think the OP is wrong to be paranoid. This could go so wrong so fast. Yikes. I do not drink. It's actually not a personal choice. It's because it started to make me sick in my early 20s. It got gradually worse, and in the end, one sip of anything gave me stomach cramps and hives lasting a week. I even ended up in the hospital. I had a gastroscopy and some tests. The doctor said there was a possibility I could end up in anaphylactic shock if I drink again. So I thought, meh, no big deal. Guess I'm not drinking ever again. Well, turns out it's a massive deal for my family. I thought simply saying no thank you when offered a drink would be enough. I was so wrong. I even told them that it makes me sick, but they said I was making it up. In my family, if you are not drinking, you are not being social. I've never been much of a drinker, even when I could drink, but for them, it's normal to empty a few bottles of the hard stuff and 6 bottles of wine as a group of 10 in one afternoon. The last time I saw my family, we were all sitting in my aunt's garden, and the usual drama started when my aunt asked what I wanted to drink. I said water, but she said I was being silly and that since my husband wasn't there, I should have a drink. I said no thanks, and she asked if I was pregnant. I said, no, I'm not. Can I just have a water, please? Then she went on a spiel about how my husband doesn't let me drink. I explained that he doesn't care and that I don't want to drink. So she brought me a glass of water, or so I thought. I picked up the glass, gulped, and swallowed. Then I realized the horrible truth. It wasn't water. I asked her what it was, and she said gin and tonic and winked at me. I sat there in bewilderment, not sure what to do or say, so I just stopped talking, trying to take in what just happened. I started to feel ill, so I made my excuses and left. I spent the night throwing up, sweating and shivering, but thankfully I felt okay in the morning and didn't have to go to the hospital. In a few weeks, I'm going back to my hometown for the first time in 2 years. I don't know how to tell my family, but I don't even want to see that aunt again. In this case, OP is totally right. I wouldn't want to ever see that aunt again either. It's bad enough to pressure someone to drink when they don't want to, but considering it makes her ill, the aunt was basically trying to poison her. Totally unacceptable. I've always known my mom lies. She was diagnosed as having borderline personality disorder years ago. But not so long ago, I was able to poke a hole in one of her stories, and I began questioning her. She was caught. That's when her web of lies unraveled. Today, I learned something that has my mind and body numb. I have a vivid memory from when I was around 3. I broke a bowl, and my stepdad, who was a total psycho, lost his mind, and my mom and him got into a fight. Later that day, my mom told me that my baby brother had passed away. I was always told that it was because of shaken baby syndrome. I remember my brother. I remember breaking the bowl. I remember them fighting and me hiding under my bed during it. The only thing is, that wasn't my brother, and the baby didn't die. The truth is mind-blowing. I found out today that the baby I thought was my brother was actually our neighbor's kid. She babysat for them daily, so it makes sense that I have so many memories of him. She would tell me every day, hug your brother, kiss your brother is napping, brother is eating. I was a little kid and I didn't know about lying, let alone that parents could lie, so I just assumed she was telling me the truth. It turns out that the part where I broke a bowl and my mom and stepdad fought was real. When the neighbor showed up to pick up her baby, she heard the fight and decided that they were too volatile to babysit an infant. Like any good mom would. My mother's reaction was deranged. She decided to tell me that my brother was dead. Apparently, everyone hid it from me because they're afraid of my mom. For good reason. She is a great liar and prone to violent outbursts, and if she sees you as her enemy, she is capable of anything. Can you imagine dealing with a lifetime of memories about the day your baby brother died, only to find out that it never really happened? You've got to be really messed up to lie about something like that, let alone to tell a story that disturbing to a little kid. I'm getting married in about 2 months. I sent out my wedding invitations recently, and at the bottom it says, adults only, no exceptions. First, let me say that I love kids. But my fiance and I made the decision to not allow kids and babies to our ceremony because they get bored, cry, won't sit still, have tantrums, and I just don't want that to happen during our wedding. Also, people will be having a drink or two, and I don't want to have to watch in horror as little kids play around inebriated adults. But this backfired almost immediately. My cousin Sam texted me last night saying, "So you're seriously telling me I cannot bring my son to your wedding?" To which I said, yes. I wrote no exceptions. I really wasn't expecting her next response. Sam wrote to me, "Then I can't come and that kills me. I just want you to know how badly I want to be there, and I have dreamt my entire life of standing next to you at your wedding. But I just can't want to be somewhere with someone who doesn't want the other half of my heart there." She's trying to guilt trip me into letting her bring her son. She's saying things like, "I've confided in my best friends, and they say it's your wedding and it's your right to have it the way you want, but yeah, I just want you to know it's not vengeance when I don't come. I'll probably cry the entire day." I suggested that she take her son, who is 7, to his friend's house for a few hours so that she can attend. She said, "I can't just tell him no and leave him somewhere. I'm not strong enough to do that to his sensitive little heart. I could if he wasn't so aware and sensitive. It would hurt him too much. He's too smart to manipulate. I never asked her to manipulate her son. I'm asking that she be an adult and tell him he can't come and that children aren't allowed to attend. But there's something else at play here. She's angry that I didn't choose her to be my maid of honor. I chose my stepsister. When I told Sam, she said, "I don't mean any offense by this, but screw her." She's literally only mad about this because my dad cheated on my mom 10 years ago and married the woman he cheated with. She hates my stepsister because she hates my stepmom. I ended up being on the phone with her for a half an hour talking to her about this. She kept constantly telling me, "I'm trying to get sober, so I just want to talk to you and tell you how I feel." But there's a dark side to this. Knowing her, it sounds like she's going to blame me if I still tell her no and she decides to fall off the wagon. We ended the phone call with her saying, "Will you just promise me one thing? Will you just promise me that you'll consider it and that you'll talk to your fiancé about it?" So I told her yes, that I consider it and talk to him about it. And I did. I talked to him, and I'm not changing my mind. Some people just can't stand when they don't get their way, even when it's someone else's wedding day. I know there's a lot of debate around not inviting kids to weddings, but I think that whatever the couple says goes. If your 7-year-old can't spend a few hours at a friend's house, well, that's a whole other problem. I tied the knot about 2 years ago. It was a casual wedding. We headed up north at my grandparents' ranch, and for the most part, everything was nice. Except for my father. He can't let go of a divorce that happened 20 years ago and has no idea how to act civil. My parents got divorced because my mom was getting tired of him being a jerk and left him. He still has not gotten over it and always has something to say about my mother on Facebook and in person. A week before the wedding, my father sent me this long text message. He said that he didn't want my mother to ruin his childhood home with her presence and that her and her family are not welcome at the wedding. He also added that because his parents own the house where the wedding is taking place, he has reason to exclude my mom's side from the wedding. I was furious. I had to remind this man that she is my mother and she is allowed at my wedding. Also, I'm not excluding my grandparents, aunts, and cousins on my mom's side from my wedding because he's petty. And he doesn't live in that house anymore. It's not his wedding, and if he doesn't like it, he doesn't have to come. He didn't like my answer, so he cried to my grandparents. He said that they were betraying him by having the wedding at their house. I was delighted by their reply. My grandparents told him he should stop acting like a child and attend his own son's wedding. So he pouted about it and decided to let it go. On the day of the wedding, we picked separate seats for the two of them so my dad didn't throw a tantrum over having to sit next to my mom. The ceremony went fine without any interruptions from him. And then it turned into a nightmare. Because then we had the reception. So my mother still talks to my dad's side of the family since my maternal grandmother and paternal grandfather were close friends growing up. There is no awkwardness or tension between both sides of my family, except for my father. Everything's going well at the reception. My wife and I are just hanging at the table with our food, and my dad's brother and my mother are at the table with us. And then my father comes over. First, he asks my uncle, "What the heck are you doing at this table?" My uncle knew exactly what to do. He shrugs and says that he's just having a conversation with people and not sulking in the corner because he's bitter. My father tells him that my mother isn't allowed to interact with his family and he should have pushed her away when she approached him. My uncle told him that he's an adult and he can do whatever he wants. This only made it escalate that much further. My father then tells my mom that she needs to leave and that he won't allow her in his presence. My mom just stares at him and goes back to her conversation. He yells at her to leave louder, and she continues to ignore him. My uncle tells him to screw off. That's when my dad really lost it. My dad tells him that if he doesn't tell that witch to go away, that he'll flip the table over. I obviously don't want him to do that, so I tell him, "Dad, since you obviously can't be civil at your own son's wedding, I'm going to ask you to leave." He huffed and told me that America is a free country and that he had every right to stay. So my uncle got up from his seat, grabbed his arm, and dragged him out of the tent before telling him that if he decided to come back, the cops would be called. But the ordeal didn't end there. The next day, he sent me a long message demanding an apology from me and saying that what I did humiliated him in front of the entire family. I told him that he humiliated himself because he's petty and can't let go of a divorce that happened 20 years ago. Come on, you're a fully grown adult man and you're acting like a ridiculous child. He didn't even consider for 1 second that the day wasn't about him. It was about his son and daughter-in-law. People who try to bring family drama to weddings really are the most deluded. My sister and I have had problems for as long as I can remember, and we don't really speak anymore. She has anger issues, serious jealousy problems, and my mom enabled her. When she found out I was pregnant, she did a complete 180. This is largely due to a severe case of baby fever. She basically tried to convince me to move back home. Then when that didn't work, she tried to convince my husband to get us to move back home. She's been largely overbearing, trying to control everything about the child. Recently, I've had a rough couple of days. Earlier today, she called me, and what she said was seriously twisted. She asked how her baby was doing. I just snapped at her. I was like, "Oh, I didn't realize you'd conceived and were currently expecting." She didn't stop there. She said I was being rude and then eventually amended it to "our baby." I responded, "Well, unless I'm mistaken, you weren't in the room when she was conceived." Eventually, she just had to drop the baby talk because she realized she was getting nowhere fast. Nope. No way, that's just creepy. If I were the OP, I would be living in serious fear that my sister would try and kidnap my kid in the middle of the night. That is some truly creepy stuff, and that woman needs to get a grip. My husband was a heavy-duty mechanic. Before he died, he'd over $15,000 in tools at his work, plus massive toolboxes. And that is the used price I could sell them for, not the new price. I don't know enough about tools to sell them myself and get the proper value, so his former boss volunteered to help me with them. Well, he called me today and told me that my husband's parents had called. They had previously tried to get his tools while he was on life support at the hospital and wanted them again. At that point, the boss told them no, that they weren't leaving the yard without my permission. But they had to go and do something horrifically selfish. They kept calling until they reached one of my husband's former coworkers and convinced him that my husband had given them several tools before he died, and to get them from his toolbox and deliver them. Luckily, his boss has a list of which tools were taken. There's only one thing left to do. Tomorrow morning, I am taking the list, his boss's statement, and my husband's will to the cops and having his parents charged with theft, getting a restraining order, and getting those tools back. These people haven't given me a moment's rest since my husband was admitted to the hospital with terminal cancer. They have threatened me, told lies about me, tried to take things from me, and just harassed me constantly. It was so bad that my dying husband had them banned from the hospital. At which point, they tried to force their way in. Security turned them away. The saddest part? They don't even think they are doing anything wrong. They don't realize they made his final days miserable. And they believe they are more entitled to his things than his wife and 5-year-old son. I have tried ignoring them, but they just keep escalating. And since they refuse to speak to me directly, the only option I have available is going to the cops. His dad has a history of disorderly behavior, assault, and uttering threats, so it should be easy to get officers to throw in a restraining order. I really hope no one is home when the officers show up, so they have to go to his mom's work. She is the type of job where you need a clean record to work there. There's petty, and then there's this. I can't believe these people couldn't put aside their greed in order to maintain a bond with their own grandchild, especially after losing their son. Some people really are determined to take a bad situation and make it worse. I'm usually the one running around every birthday and holiday to make sure everyone feels special and all the gifts are thoughtful. Luckily for my husband, he doesn't have to participate in all of that. All he has to do is take care of me for my birthday and holidays. I have run around like a loon during this last holiday season for my parents and in-laws. Food shopping, medication, hospital appointments, everything. I'm also working full-time in a hospital. On my birthday, nobody except my husband did anything special for me, and even my adult kids had to be reminded to call me. Valentine's Day was even worse. For that holiday, I bought my husband a special gift he loved. Meanwhile, I got flowers from the gas station. So for Easter, I came up with a plan. I sat back and did nothing. Everyone got random chocolates that my husband went to get at the last minute because I informed him on the Saturday I bought nothing and had no intention of doing so. I cooked nothing special for Easter lunch. I usually make starters, mains, and desserts from scratch. Instead, I spent the whole day doing what I wanted to do. Everyone noticed. And they know why I did it. because my husband told them. On Monday, my kids cleaned my house and my husband made dinner and did the washing. I think they might finally get it. I think we've all heard a variation on this story at some point, but at least in this particular version, she showed her family just how much she does for them. Sometimes you just gotta teach someone a lesson the hard way. I finally cut my toxic parents off. I had a feeling they weren't done with me, so I installed security cameras just to stay safe. I'm glad I did, because I quickly caught my dad on tape. The footage would ruin him. I still have contact with my siblings, and he came to drop my youngest sister off. It was arranged that we'd babysit for her. Well, the moment he noticed the camera, he took off running, leaving a 6-year-old child standing alone on the doorstep. Ever since then, he's refused to drop any of my siblings off at my house, even though I frequently babysit and help them with schoolwork. Just another example of what a terrible father he is, and why I have no contact with him. Sure, no one loves being filmed, but if there's one thing that makes you seem shady, it's gotta be running off when you notice a camera. I can't believe this guy left his own kid standing there alone. That's our last one for today, but keep checking back for more videos full of absolutely wild real-life stories.